came out with the giant scale Ultra Stick, there was little doubt that I had to have one. It looks like Hangar 9 added some length to this fuselage. I think most of that's in the tail section. They also updated the shape of their vertical stabilizer, which should give this plane a lot more rudder authority. And that's a good thing. I also like that they didn't try and add a cowl to this plane. There isn't a reason to have one, and it keeps it simple for the newer flyers that want to build one. Mounting an engine on the stick models has never been very difficult. I like that we can actually see the mixture screws and aren't hunting them through a little hole in the cowl. To get the CG right, I had to move just about everything I could up to the forward bay, and that got a little crowded. Once I'm sure that the CG's in the correct spot, we'll go back and see if we can't clean this up a little bit. All of the ugly sticks had a narrow fuselage, and they've maintained that with this giant scale model. That means we need to take our time when we're figuring out where we're going to put everything. Servo locations are predetermined to work with the tubes they've already installed. Those tubes guide the push rods so they come out of the fuselage at the right place back by the tail feathers. I cut down some longer servo horns so they had just enough clearance between them but gave me the maximum throw. There's nothing wrong with using standard arms and standard throws. I did have to reshape the ends of the push rods a little bit just to make sure that they're nice and free in the tubes. All we needed was some gentle bends just to make sure that the rods got to the control horns cleanly. I have to admit that a two-piece shoulder-mounted wing had me a little concerned at first, but Hangar 9 had figured this out as well. That dowel makes sure that the wings are lined up when they're installed. A very stout aluminum wing tube makes sure that the wings don't fold up on us. The leading edge of the wing plugs into these dowel holes in the structure. The trailing edge is secured by a pair of finger-installed nylon bolts. After assembling the wing halves over the aluminum wing tube, the wing is ready to be installed. It turns out that this installation is a lot easier to do at the field also. When we slide the dowels into the holes in the fuselage, that locks the front half of the wings together. Then we just install the nylon bolts through the plate and tighten it down. This really is very simple. Getting a wing like this on the plane and all the wires connected by yourself can be a problem, unless you can make a little stick like this. I have more people at flying fields want to see my little stick than anything else. And there really isn't anything to it. It's just a simple idea that you make out of scraps. I do lots and lots of touch and goes, so I always use this miracle tail wheel assembly whenever I can. This is a tiller style tail wheel, and it steers very well. And if I happen to land it sideways, there's something that wire bends before anything breaks, and I just bend the wire back to straighten the wheel out. The Ultra Stick feature that really piqued my interest was the flaps. I love flying a plane that does things slower than it looks like it can, and flaps help that out a bunch. Even if you're not addicted to touch and goes like I am, flaps slow the plane down a lot and make landings easier. This is the first time that the Ultra Stick has been under its own power, and I just wanted to drive it around a little bit to see if it goes sort of straight. There's plenty of other things that can go wrong on a maiden takeoff without the plane zooming off to one side or the other. But the steering looks to be pretty good. It's doing what I tell it to. I had thought about driving it around some more to get some more heat built up in the motor, but figured it's hot enough. We just need to get this thing in the air. And it seems like the Ultra Stick had the same idea. It did try to turn to the right a little bit when I gave it the gas, but it took off and flew pretty decent. It did need a good bit of up elevator though, and I had to add a few clicks of right aileron. And as I always do, I start shooting some approaches right away just in case I need to get this thing back on the ground quick. I just wanted to see how it handles. This is a great big thick wing, so it handles good at lower speeds. That was easy enough, so I just gassed it and we'll go around and do a couple of more. This time around I put a bunch of rudder in it, kept the wing pretty level, just to see how it turned that way. And it likes the rudder, it's nice and smooth and doesn't have any bad habits. And this is the first time I put the flaps out and still used the rudder, and it handled really nice coming in. Slowed down, nice and stable in the air. We're not being finished with the first flight yet, and I can see that this is going to be a fun airplane to fly. It was quickly becoming clear that this plane doesn't need a whole lot of horsepower to get it in the air. Let it build up a little ground speed, just a little bit of elevator, and up she goes. One of the penalties of so much wing is that you don't get much of a roll rate. The Ultra Stick's got plenty of aileron authority at all speeds. It's just not going to blur the wing and the rolls. Here we're going to pull it up on a 45, roll it on its back, and let go of the sticks. And it flies pretty straight. It's got a little nose down, which means it might be just a tick nose heavy. I think we'll leave the CGA alone right now and get everything else sorted out. Here we're going to give it full throttle, take off, and kind of turn it back over the field and point it up and see how much pull this thing really has. When I pull the nose up, it doesn't slow down much at all, so we got plenty of power. Back in the day, I taught a lot of people how to fly inverted on the old ugly sticks. And it looks like teaching them to fly inverted with this giant scale ultra stick isn't going to be any tougher. You have to hold a little bit of down elevator, but I like that, and it doesn't have any bad habits. Here we're going to nose the ultra stick up, let it run out of steam a little bit, and then cut the throttle and see how it glides down. You notice that it just falls through nice and easy. It didn't want to snap, it didn't want to drop wings, just falls through nice and predictable. That means as long as you don't get carried away with the elevator, this will be fine for dead sticks. If you're looking for just a nice flying airplane, you need to look at the Hangar 9 Ultra Stick. This plane is easy to fly, it likes the flaps and rudder, and it handles great at lower speeds. This is also a good platform to get yourself into giant scale because it handles great. This is a true giant scale, but it doesn't need a giant runway. The Hangar 9 Ultra Stick is perfectly happy at the smaller fields. And an even better point is that it doesn't have a giant scale price tag. See the full review on my website for more details.